What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream on a Friday night, because why? What else have you got going on? It's only the day before the weekend, so why not spend it with me on your computer or your cellular device rather than going out and having a social life? That's underrated anyway. So yeah, I guess I'm just gonna get right into it. I've been wanting to do a video about the ending of the Curb Your Enthusiasm series for a while now, because it's been one of my favorite. It's been one of my favorite shows consistently for a really, really freaking long time. It kind of like reminds me almost of like I'm almost more nostalgic for Curb Your Enthusiasm than I am for Seinfeld, because I like grew up watching Curb Your Enthusiasm like when I was at like an age to where I could actually get the freaking jokes, unlike Seinfeld that was a little bit like it was during when I was like a child that Seinfeld was on TV during the 90s. So like we were kind of watching it, but I didn't get a lot of the jokes. I just remember thinking or hearing probably that like, yes, this is a good show. This is a show of merit. You should like this show. But I think first time we even saw Curb Your Enthusiasm, my family we were on a vacation. I think I was like 14 or 15 years old, and we went to somewhere like either Orlando or somewhere in Georgia or whatever, and we were staying at a hotel, and hotels always had HBO. That was always the whole shtick behind I don't know if that's still a selling point for hotels and motels, Holiday Inns, but back when I was coming up, for the longest time, free cable and HBO, like that was like a big selling point or whatever. I don't like the glare on this thing. It bothers me. Anyway, so yeah, we were watching HBO because it was like, wow, what a treat. We don't get this channel because my family were a bunch of cheapskates, and they didn't want to pay for stuff like HBO. So whenever we had those free preview weekends, my dad would always bust out the VHS player and tape huge blocks of HBO and Cinemax, even the late at night stuff. But he didn't want the family knowing that the VCR was recording that late at night, but I knew what he was doing. So yeah, like 2002, 2003, we just put HBO on at the hotel, and Curb Your Enthusiasm was on it. It must have been season 2 at that point. It couldn't have been any more recent than that. I'm looking at their chart now of like when their all their seasons came out. So actually, I think we probably would have jumped in on season 3, which was from September 15th, 2002 to November 17th, 2002. Damn, did they release them that? I guess that's right. All right, whatever. So yeah, we were kind of like in on the ground floor, and my whole family just thought it was a really funny show, and it's kind of rare that I think my mom has always been more the intellectual type than my dad's. Like my dad didn't so much like find that kind of stuff as funny. He was more the good old boy. My mom was from Massachusetts, so she read a lot, and she had a more sophisticated sense of humor, and me, my brother, my mom, all found Curb Your Enthusiasm like a very funny show. So, because it was on HBO, and because like Larry didn't have to like bend to, corporate masters as much as he would on network television like NBC, Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of like has a very spotty, well, it went on to have a spotty release, because as I'm looking at this chart here, they had the special that came out in 1999, which is crazy because it's like pretty much like the same year Seinfeld ends. Larry David's already taking on a new project, even though he had quit Seinfeld, to essentially do something that is so like the lifeblood of Seinfeld that it's not even funny. I mean, that first special, if anyone's ever seen it, like the executives at HBO are trying to get Larry to do a stand-up special. So they're building these various prototype sets for him to look at and approve of, and he just kind of hates the whole thing. And you get to meet Cheryl, his wife, and Jeff, his manager, for the first time, and it was really good. And then the actual proper show kicked off in October 15th of 2000 with the Pants Tent episode. I'm going to be coming back to that. Larry David's wearing these corduroy pants and they bunch up in the crotch area. As most guys know, this happens with some pants. And it looks like you have a boner. So that was kind of the premise of the first episode of season 1. Because he goes out to the movies with Cheryl's friend. Cheryl looks down and thinks that she gave him a boner. But yeah, just put that in your back pocket for a little bit. So anyway, the show goes on. You know, season 2's 2001, season 3's 2002. Then they skip a year. Season 4's 2004, 5's 2005. Season 6, they skip a year again, it's 2007. They're kind of skipping around years for a while. Up until season 8, they take a full 6 years off. So they go from July 2011, and season 9 doesn't come out until 6 years later, October 2017. And then they skip around some way. They take 3 years off. Season 10 comes out in 2020, the pandemic. Season 11, 2021. And then they skip 3 more years. And so then they finally come back February 4th of 2024. Now, I guess one problem I have with this is that the actors, like their appearances, like just kind of change dramatically. Not Larry, surprisingly enough. Larry, like, the only thing that really changes on Larry is he gets a little bit more wrinkly and his eyebrows go from being dark to white. Because in like the first few seasons, he had dark eyebrows, and that freakishly made him look so much younger looking that I can't even explain like why your eyebrow color would de-age you that much. I mean, granted, also it was like the early 2000s, so it was like 20 years ago when he was in his mid-50s instead of mid-70s. But, I mean, the guy must have a hell of a diet because he, you know, yes, he's starting to look like a 76-year-old man, but damn, he's still moving around and very articulate. And, I mean, you don't see any signs of age with this guy except for just physically. Now, can't say that for the other cast members. I made some notes here. I was going to kind of wait until I get into talking about the final episode before I start commenting on the other cast members. But I'll just go ahead and say, like, what the elephant in the room here. Richard Lewis, man, he just really, really went downhill as that show went on. You could really see it in probably, like, I don't know, it probably went all the way back to like season 9, like 2017, like there was like he was starting to get frail, you know. I mean, shit, in the first few seasons he had like still had like dark hair. He still had, you know, had his wearing all black. He was dressed like he was about to do a stand-up special, because I mean he always wore the same thing, but he looked good. He was funny. They had a lot of physical bits, him and Larry, like their dynamics were so natural. I mean, I think everyone's dynamics on that show was natural. That's what made it great, because they were mostly improvising from everything that I've read, everything I've seen. They're mostly improvising anytime they did an episode of that show. Yeah, I knew my viewership was going to be low on this one because this is such a niche topic for me to talk about. Like, very few people are going to give a fuck to listen. But I do appreciate the ones that are in here. Chicago, Volontera, Matt Henderson, pretty good. Robert Tonis, Jeff P, Vince's Variety Channel. I'll read your actual comments now. Way better than Seinfeld. I don't know, man. I've had that debate in my mind, is like which one is better? Because like Seinfeld, you had such a great ensemble of like Kramer and George, and you know, Jerry had his moments, but I don't know, he was more of the glue that kind of held everything together. Elaine had her moments. Obviously, me being a former fat, you know, rejected by girls, kind of a loser, I identified with George and Kramer more than anybody else. And I did not identify with Elaine or Jerry because they were seemingly the popular ones or the cool kids or whatever. But there were so many classic moments on that show, and no, having to dance around the FCC and the standards and practices with what you could get away with on network television, like, and they still made it so funny. I know it's easier to be like, oh, well, Curb is way edgier and way more raw than Seinfeld, and yes, that is true, especially for the first like 4 seasons. Curb got just as cartoony as Seinfeld did when Larry left, especially towards like the middle to last few seasons. Now, I will say, with Curb Your Enthusiasm, I had started kind of giving up on it, like, I think around season 6. Let me see if this was when I started noticing, like, Okay, yeah, so when the Black family moves in, because the Hurricane Katrina happened, and then the Black family moves in, that's their actual last name, and yes, they happen to be Black, and I'm sure Larry took great joy in that juxtaposition or whatever. It's not really a juxtaposition, it's actually they're not opposed, anyway. But yeah, I don't know, I just like adding a new family and a new cast of characters. Like, I thought that was, it's like forcing, like, not diversity, because I'm not trying to make it like a racial thing, but you're forcing like all these new characters onto the audience, and it seems very like shoehorned in. And like, I'm not gonna lie, man, Leon Black as a character, he got on my damn nerves in the early seasons, but then towards the end he kind of started to, I felt like he kind of blended in a little better. But even still, that character of like just the ignorant, horny, like, inarticulate, like, character who was an obvious foil to Larry. He was the polar opposite of Larry David, and that's why he works, and I get that, but I just found the character fucking annoying, man. Like, I always felt like when Larry and Cheryl were married was some of the best seasons of the show, was some of the best times of the show. So yeah, like season 6, like the anonymous donor, the Ida Funkhauser roadside memorial, the lefty call. I mean, come on, you're doing a whole episode where the concept is Larry flushes a toilet and it's so loud it damages his hearing in his right ear. So now anytime he makes an important phone call, he's got to do a lefty call, and he can't hear as well or articulate as well. And it just, I don't know, it got so ridiculous. The freak book, the rat dog. Okay, so I guess when the like season 6 kind of picks up a little bit during the middle, because they have the TiVo guy, and that's when Larry and Cheryl decides to leave Larry. I'm not gonna go in super depth about these, because I figured if you clicked on this, like, you kind of know the show well enough to where you kind of get like what the plots are, and I don't have to like explain in depth exactly what's going on. But yeah, so going forward after the TiVo guy, you get kind of the Cheryl has left Larry, and it's not even an arc, because it just kind of carries on into the next season, which is the big Seinfeld reunion. I remember that being a big deal. God, 2009. Man, the Seinfeld reunion season was 2009. God damn, dude. Time is flying. I feel like that shit came out like 5 years ago. I swear to God. 5 years. Jeez. And even if it had come out 5 years ago, that would have been, it still would have been 10 more years since that had come out. God damn. That's crazy. So yeah, that was a treat watching the reunion, but I still thought the episodes were kind of weak. I thought how they used the Seinfeld like characters, Jason Alexander, Michael Richards, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Jerry, all them. I thought they could have used them a little bit better. And Jerry, man, he cannot act to save his life. Like, he is so stilted on this show. I think Julia did good. Jason Alexander, I think, was written to be the asshole in that for that arc of season 7 or whatever, because he was kind of like an asshole throughout that, because as unscripted as it may be, the characters do kind of have a tone that they have to hit. And I think that was, Jason's was like, okay, Jason kind of has to be the foil to Larry, he has to be the obstacle that's blocking Cheryl, because Larry starts thinking that Jason's trying to hook up with Cheryl. And then, of course, it's got such this season has such a disappointing payoff. The final episode's called Seinfeld, and Larry and Cheryl are about to get back together when he notices that Cheryl has put her drink on his wooden, side table or whatever, and she didn't use a coaster, and he's like, "You don't respect wood, do you? You don't have any respect for wood." And she's like literally leaning in and about to kiss him, and he's like, hold on. You're the one who left the ring, So they end up not getting together because Larry couldn't get over the fact that Cheryl was the one who left the ring stain on Julia's table. And it was just, at this point, I was just kind of checked out. Season 8, you had the divorce. Then the Palestinian chicken, which, a lot of people might have liked all the how absurd things had gotten to this point, but you got to realize, man, I jumped in season 3, and then I went back and rewatched seasons 1 and 2. Seasons 1 through 4 were so strong and so based in Larry's actual reality as a post Seinfeld Hollywood elite who's very wealthy, and the things he does on the show are the things he does in real life. He's a golfer, so he plays golf on the show a lot. I don't know if he plays up his Judaism as much in real life as he does in the show, but he's going to temple a lot. He's doing a lot of Jewish related things, putting up the tallah or whatever it is on the door, the mezuzah, having seders, observing Passover and all that kind of stuff. Seemingly just doing it out of tradition and not because Larry necessarily believes in God in any way, shape, or form. He's essentially an atheist on the show, but it just kind of does all these things out of tradition to make others around him happy and to kind of fit into the societal norms of the Jewish community that he belongs in or whatever in the show. But yeah, season 8 was very weak. And then they had the car periscope episode on season 8. They had that same that was on a Seinfeld episode that Kramer wanted, I think, Jerry to invest in or something, and they finally turned it into a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode, which almost made me feel like they were definitely losing ideas at this point as to or running out of ideas, and maybe that's why they took a 6-year break after season 8, because then they finally come back in 2009 or 2017. They come back with season 9. I forgot even what a lot of these. Oh, this was the whole fatwa one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't like this entire season. This was season 9 was when I really was like, oh man, I really don't like this show anymore. It's gotten completely. It's just left the earth, is just completely in outer space now. And then the whole arc of the season is whether there was some Ayatollah that put out a fatwa on Larry David's head for some reason. I forget why he even did. I think he was on some talk show and he said something that was, he was on Jimmy Kimmel or something, and he did an impression of the Ayatollah. And then they put a fatwa on his head or whatever. So, okay, whatever. At that point, I'm totally checked out. And then we get to season 10 in 2020. And, I feel like I didn't know what happened. But I felt like the show had come back. And I thought it had kind of become funny again. They had some good episodes on here. I think, was this the one? I think this began the whole burglar falling into Larry's pool and dying. That might have been season 11. Let me see. The fence. Yeah, the 5-foot fence. Okay, so season 11 was a very, very strong season, I felt. I don't know what, if they had. Well, no, I'm looking at the writers. No, it's the same writers. Yeah, I don't know. They had gotten. I thought just the concept I thought was in itself funnier. The someone tries to rob Larry's house and then accidentally drowns in his pool as he's trying to make his getaway. And because Larry doesn't have a 5-foot fence around his pool, which is apparently a law in California. Now, I don't know if Curb Your Enthusiasm is infamous for making up shit that sounds real. Like, even in the final season, he's talking about his Wonderdonk cheese. I actually looked that cheese up. It does not exist. There's not a cheese called Wonderdonk. It's just a funny name that Larry made up or whatever. So there's this apparent rule in California. They have to have a 5-foot fence around your swimming pool. And so he basically, also he's working on this show called Young Larry. And anyway, long story short, the brother of the guy who died in the pool basically blackmails Larry to put his daughter in a starring role in Young Larry or whatever. And so Larry starts dating this councilwoman just for the sole purpose that he can get her to repeal the law so the guy can no longer blackmail him because his daughter can't act worth a shit and does a horrible job. So he's like trying to like date this woman, this actress that they have to portray the chick that Larry ends up dating she's so just, they casted someone that is just perfectly disgusting looking. And she's just like talking about her irritable bowel syndrome and her gas problem, and she has to wear a sleep mask when she goes to sleep, and Larry just has to like deal with this like nasty old lady, to be able to get this law repealed, which ultimately I believe does it happen or does it not end up happening? I think it doesn't end up happening. Anyway, I rewatched the whole series like a couple months ago, so I'm a little spotty on some of the details, but anyway. All right, so then we finally get to the final season, and now the arc of this season is the whole voter in God, I'm so fucking stupid. Like voter tampering or something like that. Basically, that whole law that passed in Georgia. And I remember this actually came straight from the news, so it's actually based on something that happened in real life. Larry did a lot of these in season 11 and season 12 with like the I think this was all in season 12, the perfect phone call, and he's making a bunch of there's a bunch of Trump references. There's even a Will Smith, Chris Rock reference in season 12 where someone says a mean joke to his wife Susie, and she Jeff laughs at it, and then Susie gives him a mean look, and then Jeff goes and acts like he's being the guy up, and he's like, "Keep my wife's fucking name out of your mouth," or something like that. It's pretty clever, very clever writing from a dude in his 70s who can still be so just like present with like all the stuff that's still going on in the world, and have it still be funny on top of that. Like I can imagine most directors and writers that age are like trying to check the fuck out at that point and not have to worry about current events and all that. So yeah, I thought season 12 was okay. It had some goofiness and cartoonishness that he introduced in the later seasons, but it also had some things that were grounded in reality. I thought episodes like the disgruntled episode, like Who is Disgruntled, I thought that was kind of a weaker, sillier episode. The Gettysburg Address one was kind of silly. Although seeing Ted Danson, do that play or whatever, and Ted being written as this very like guy who gets high off his own farts, kind of snobby Hollywood guy. Like I thought that was funny that they kind of wrote him in that light. he used to be a lot more down to earth in the earlier episodes. Like, I think most of them in the earlier episodes acted like who they actually were in person. And then kind of as the show went on, it's like, well, we have to exaggerate, certain aspects of your personality. I mean, certainly Larry David exaggerates, his ability to just say anything he wants to anybody he wants at any time. There's this one scene where, like, they try to put Larry up against black people anytime they can because they just found that Larry interacting with black people is funny because he's just this nebbishy old Jewish guy interacting with black people is just comedic gold. There's this, they're waiting in line at the Walgreens. I think this was off of season 11 or season 10. And there's this black woman in front of them. And then there's this like big like chunk of the line where like she's not moving forward. And Larry's like, I got to go say something. And he's like, maybe you could move up in the line there. You're kind of holding the line back. She's like, excuse me? Are you saying that because I'm black? I bet you wouldn't say it to a white man. And he goes, I would absolutely say that to a white man. And after knowing Larry for this long and and investing this much time into him, the joke hits that much hard because Larry would have absolutely said that to a white man or anybody else. He doesn't give a fuck. It could be a lady in a wheelchair. I mean, they literally go there in every way possible on this show. I mean, they have like a little girl and the mom, like the PA on the Seinfeld season is talking about, oh yeah, my daughter, we just, we had to take her to the doctor. She has an itchy pussy. And so the whole rest of the episode, and I don't know why they would do this, but Larry's always referring to this child's vagina as her pussy. And it's just so wrong, but so like funny, awkward, funny, like, why are you referring to this child's vagina as her pussy? That's like a social gray area because it's like, it is a slang for genitalia, but you typically don't call a child's, genitalia the adult slang for it. Like, like if you had if I had a son, I wouldn't be like, yeah, my son's got caught in the door the other day, but I mean, Jesus Christ. They go there in every way, shape, and form, whether you're paraplegic or black, white, Asian, whatever it may be. They have many like Asian kind of jokes about him going into like sushi restaurants and harassing the chefs there, or making fun of the kamikaze pilots in World War II because one of Cheryl's friends had a grandfather who was a kamikaze pilot, and Larry's like, how can he be a kamikaze pilot if he lived? He's still alive, so he's not technically a kamikaze pilot. Maybe he was flying towards a ship. He's like, oh, what am I doing? This is crazy. I think I'm going to turn around and go back to base. And yeah, so they literally go there in every way, shape, and form. Whether you're gay, Jewish, whatever. I mean, Jesus, the Holocaust Museum joke where they have all the shoes of the Holocaust victims, and Larry stepped in shit or something on his way into Holocaust Museum, so he takes his shoes off, and then it starts to rain while he's in the museum, and he needs shoes, so he literally takes a pair of shoes from the Holocaust, people who died in the Holocaust, and he like tap dances out of the Holocaust Museum wearing these shoes or whatever, and it's like, damn, like this show goes so fucking hard and is still like so fucking edgy. Like even like in such a way that like you almost, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you could try to cancel Larry David, but like he just writes his shit in such a smart way to where it's like, well, he's not, I don't know. I guess looking back at some of those older seasons, I'm like, man, he wouldn't get away with like some of the older stuff, but like the whole affirmative action one from like season, I think 1 or 2, where Richard Lewis is with Larry and his friend. Richard's friend Justin jogs by, and Richard's like, "Hey, Justin! Hey, come over here. Oh, this is my friend Larry," and he's a dentist or something like that. And Larry's like, "Oh, you let to Richard. He's like, "Oh, you let this guy operate on you?" And Richard's like, "Yeah, he's the best." And Larry goes, "Yeah, even with the whole affirmative action thing." And the black guy, the Richard's friend's just like, what's that supposed to mean? You're saying I wasn't qualified enough to be. be a dentist just because I'm black. No, I wasn't saying that. I was trying to be affable. And he's just like, you know what? I'm gonna go, Richard. I don't need this. Yeah, tell your friend. It was nice meeting him, or whatever. And he's like, what? I'm trying to be affable. And Richard's just like, what the fuck? Are you crazy? Why would you bring that up? And I don't know. I feel like, and it later go on in the episode goes to bite him in the ass because he has to. Anyway, so yeah, great show. All right, so let me read some of your comments here because I know I've been just blathering on about the show and kind of laying a groundwork to talk about the final episode, because that's really kind of what I wanted to get to was the final episode and some of the things I noticed about it that I'm sure all you have too if you watched it. Voluntary. Some people don't get why Seinfeld is funny. I don't get those people. Yeah, I always run into those people, and they're typically people who think Friends is a funny show, but they didn't get Seinfeld, or they just are straight up hostile about it. I hate that show, and it's like, really? You hate Seinfeld? And there's even part of the intelligentsia now in media who it's kind of become edgy now to say that Seinfeld actually wasn't that good of a show after all, and actually Seinfeld wasn't that funny after all, blah blah blah, for whatever reasons they might put out. They're just trying to be edgy, and they're trying to be contrarians and just kind of shit on something that is they can't get over the fact that man, why does so many people have to like this show? Surely it can't be that good. It's like, man, give me any show of that time on network television that was anywhere near as smart and as witty as Seinfeld was. You can't do it. I mean, I could say the Larry Sanders Show, but that wasn't network television. That was HBO. And you could get away with a lot more on there. So they had an unfair advantage. That's another great show you should check out, by the way. It's a real hidden gem of HBO 90s television, the Larry Sanders Show. A very funny show. It's on par with Seinfeld and Curb, but maybe not quite as funny, but it's still damn funny. Definitely worth a watch. It's not streaming anywhere, I don't think, but I bought the box set off of Amazon. It's got a bunch of good extras. Chicago didn't watch much Curb Your Enthusiasm. Remember it being quite good. Looks like a Robert Stack t-shirt. It is a Robert Stack t-shirt. Yeah, Larry, I commented earlier about Larry David not really aging much. Voluntary saying Larry David doesn't drink or smoke. Yeah, and he probably never really did, and that's definitely why he stayed as fit and as young and as healthy as he is into his mid-70s. That dude's probably going to live to be 90 or 100. I'm not seeing any slowing down with him at all. Even in his final show, he was maybe didn't get into as many physical brawls as he did in the first few seasons. He was always getting into physical altercations with people. Elaine's heart was a fucking sewage pump. Yeah, I saw there's some channels out there on YouTube that are 100% dedicated to only talking about Seinfeld. And I saw one clickbaity video recently, it just had Elaine's face in this red background, and it was the most evil character on Seinfeld. And I watched the video, and it's yeah, I mean, they were all kind of pieces of shit in their own way. I mean, there wasn't anyone on that show that was really all that good or super likable. That was what was so unique about that show. Lawrence Hawley. The one chance I had to do background work on Curb last year was the day my car decided to break down in the Palm Desert on my way back to LA. Long live Curb. Damn. That's crazy. Were you doing were you an extra or part of the crew? Or I'd be interested to know. Cheryl Hines was so hot. Her real life husband is RFK Jr. What? No. Are you serious? No, Cheryl Hines, she was a fucking babe. She had this unique hotness to her. It's hard to explain, but And she is still to the last season. It still looks damn good for however old she must be. Got to be in her mid 60s, but man, in those early seasons, like, gosh, she was such a fucking fox. She was so hot in a unique way, in an interesting way. It wasn't like the obvious leading lady kind of way, but yeah, I was always very attracted to Cheryl. And I hated how they made Cheryl more of a bitch as the show went on. Like when Cheryl and Larry were still married, they had a lot of moments that were genuinely like tender, sweet moments between them where Cheryl was being very loving towards Larry. And then at some point in the show, they just decided, like, fuck her. Like, let's just make her like like Larry's dissenter who always just like goes against anything and everything he does, never stands by his side. And I think I was reading something on some forum the other day, and it's apparently the focus groups did not like Cheryl at all. And so they kind of I guess they started to like write her in a different way to where Larry could play off of her more, like, and they took away more of those like loving moments and those moments that make her seem more likable, and they just turned her into this nagging bitch who just always disagreed with everything that Larry did and said, and eventually just split them up completely to where she had very little screen time. I thought it was a shame, and it's also a shame that she's married to that fucking whack job RFK Jr. How do you have a dad that like did so much like decent shit, and then you have a son who's just this fucking nutcase? Well, I guess you can look at a bunch of people where that's the scenario. What's the deal with 9/11? That was what somebody said in the comments. That's not what I said. Neshoba White Deer, hello Ghost, how are you doing? What was the last karaoke song you heard at your job? At the job you heard someone at your job sing last? Well, I worked last night, and the last song that was sung was "I Hope You Dance" by Leanne Womack. And the only reason I know that was because I was trying to get the fuck home, and someone's like, please, I'll tip you $10. And I was like, fine, give me your money. Sing your goddamn song. I can stand here for 3 more minutes for $10, I guess. Salman Rushdie was in the Fatwa season back when he still had 2 eyes. Oh my god. Oh yeah, I heard something about his eye getting shot out or something. Now I'm like blinking both of my eyes. Well, thank you. It's Always Sunny in Pahoa. DWG rules all. Even if you're saying it ironically, thank you. What's up, D-Man666? Samak of the Beast. Some kamikaze pilots were shot down and many of the downed pilots survived. Ah. Well, that's something I didn't know. People wanted to cancel him over choking Elmo. Mostly just Will Wheaton. Did Larry David choke Elmo in the series? I don't quite remember that. There are high school kids who think Kiara Strings. There are high school kids who think Seinfeld is funny, which is shocking to me. Yeah, that's what is that Gen Alpha at this point, or is that still Gen Z? I can't see. I could see smart Gen Z kids. I can see them getting Seinfeld. Although I will say there's so much as the series gets older. Yes, there are some themes that are infinitely funny and that will always be funny because it's the human experience. Waiting, for a table at a restaurant, and it seems like everybody's getting called except you. Or like, there's this one scene in one of the episodes of Seinfeld where they're rewinding a tape, and they're just waiting for the tape to rewind, and it doesn't cut. It doesn't do it fast. It just lets the tape naturally rewind, and they just kind of like look at each other like, like just that awkward moment where in between when when an action is initiated and then the thing is supposed to happen, there's that awkward space in between. In every sitcom, the rule would have been cut that in-between spot out. That's not interesting. Seinfeld left it the fuck in because it's like, that's what this show is about. It's about these odd little cracks in society that we all face, we all recognize, but nobody had been smart enough up until that point of putting all of that into a show, all of the minutia of everyday life, and doing it in such a unique and funny way. What's up, Random Video Circus? M Twice. Speaking of HBO, did you ever watch the old Tenacious D shows they made before Tenacious D were popular? Yes, I've seen those. They were pretty fucking funny. I remember the one where Jack Black and Kyle Gass are in their apartment and they think they finally wrote like this new rock masterpiece, and turns out it was just the ice cream truck that was going by. They had subliminally like heard the melody so many times. That's what they had wrote on guitar. Random videos. Let's talk about Bimmy. Oh man, if Bimmy would actually put anything out, I'd talk about him. But he's been like starving us, man. Like he's given me nothing to work with. Like Rex Viper hasn't been doing anything. No one's been alerting me to anything that he's done. It's just been him and Tony from the corner playing their fucking video games, and James doing lists of old movies. Like he hasn't put out a nerd episode in a while from all I know. Yeah. He's been starving the communities that are built upon the hatred of James. But no, that's fine. I'm having fun doing my other stuff, even though my last few videos haven't done so great. So I might pivot myself and try a new idea. D-Man, off topic, but any advice for an aspiring guitarist? Well, if you genuinely enjoy playing guitar, you'll find yourself picking it up constantly. That's what happened with me, at least. Even back when I sucked, I'd still pick it up and fuck about on it. And even when you think you're like, it sounds like shit and you don't sound very good, the longer you keep playing, you don't realize it, but you're building muscles in your fingers to where it becomes easier and easier to hold the strings down, and it becomes easier to, strum a note and strum it in time. And, once you're ready, just buy, they have probably online things now, but I bought a book because I'm old, that showed you the most simple chords, your G chord, your D chord, and you learn your, what they call cowboy chords, which are all the open chords at the very end of the guitar. You learn all those, and then learn power chords, which are just two strings that you hold down. And if you learn power chords, you can play any rock song that pretty much has ever existed. So, and stick with it, and you'll eventually get good at it if you give a shit. I mean, that goes for anything. If you care about anything, if you just stick with it, like, you either get better at it or you get worse at it, and you'll be able to know the difference, and then just go from there. Let's see here. I've been rewatching 90s Weird Science. The Table for Four, Costanza. I said Costanza. I say Table for Cartwright. But you're Costanza. I know I'm Costanza. Apparently I'm Cartwright. Anyway, all right. Thank you, Chicago, for being okay with me not talking about James Rolfe. It's not that I'm like, I haven't talked about James in a while, but he's not done anything that warrants me talking about him. So I'm not just going to like pull something out of my ass to get views, which would be probably the smart thing for me to do. That would make all my stockholders happy, is if I did that. But I'm just not going to be that, over the top with it, that blatant, because I don't care that much about milking James Rolfe's withering udders. Okay, so the final episode, I'll get to it now. So the final episode was 52 minutes in length. I felt like there was a lot in there that was a little like extraneous. It was a little like, I figured the final episode of a show that's been on since 2000 would have gone out with a bit more, like, I don't know, substance. Like, there were definitely some meaty parts in there, but overall, like, I feel like the final episode was, like, a little flimsy. So the whole arc of season 12, the final season, is Larry unknowingly hands Auntie Ray a bottle of water while she's waiting in line to vote. Larry breaks some law, that voter tampering law or whatever it's called, and voter suppression, something like that. Larry gets arrested. There's that hilarious picture at the end of that episode where he's doing that like furrowed brow that Donald Trump did when in his mugshot. So fucking funny. So Larry posts bail, and now he has a court date that he has to go to. He's going to be on trial for violating this law. Kind of like a certain foursome that went, we're going to fly to, what was it, Paris? And their plane went down in Latham, Massachusetts, and they witnessed some guy getting robbed, and they didn't do anything. And under the Good Samaritan law, they got arrested. Starting to see some parallels there. So that's the kind of the thing that's hanging over Larry's head the entire season of the last season 12. And so they have, their kind of other stuff that happens. Like, just gonna take a look here. Yeah, like there's the whole, like, a lot of golf oriented stuff. And again, man, just seeing Richard Lewis, like, just looking he looks like a corpse in this final season. You feel so bad for the guy, because it's like before he just like dropped dead, essentially, like nobody knew he was really like all that sick. But I just made a mental note. I'm like, Jesus, how long are they going to keep making this guy act in these shows? Because he looks like he looks bad, like in bad health. Like he looked like an elderly old man who should be in like a nursing home. Like, I don't know what it was, but he had just kind of gone downhill fast. And he had been sober since like 1995, I believe. And he even mentions that in the show. And that's, again, one of the many reasons I love this show. Richard Lewis is always bringing up that, my parents died. I've been a recovering alcoholic since 1995. I have no kids. He's always bringing it up, and Larry's always like, oh, your parents died. You don't have any kids. He just like mocks him relentlessly, and it's all like based on true, like, real life things with these people. It's not just, they made up all this stuff for the show, so the actor himself can't really get offended because, this is all made up. It's like, no, this is all real. Like, Richard Lewis, all that stuff is true about him. But yeah, they had that lawn jockey episode where there was like the black lawn jockey statue, and then the disgruntled that I'd already said earlier. Then what, the fish stuck? What was that one? Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a question I had. That's fine when episode 5 is finally when Larry breaks up with that disgusting chick he was dating or whatever. I really didn't love Vince Vaughn in the Curb Your Enthusiasm world, like, at all. I never really like it when they take very known Hollywood actors and give them these fictional roles on the show. Like, Vince Vaughn should have just, like, played Vince Vaughn. Like, kind of like Conan played Conan. Like, that dude's, like, he's a very well-known actor, and he ends up playing, like, one of the Funkhausers. He's, like, Freddie Funkhauser. And I don't know. I didn't like Vince Vaughn in the show, and they used him a lot. And then my question is like, well, where was Bob Einstein or whatever his name was, the guy who played Marty Funkhauser? Like, dude, Marty was like a very integral character in like pretty much every season of Curb Your Enthusiasm until like the last 1 or 2 seasons. I don't remember if he was in season 11, but he definitely wasn't in season 12. And it's like, you would have thought that like the last season or the last episode that you would have had Marty Funkhauser as part of the group, but they didn't. I'm sure there's some reason why Bob, he's dead. Shit, the chat just said he's dead. Okay, that is a perfectly good reason why he wouldn't be Let me see. Let me check here. Oh, damn. He died in 2019. Holy shit. Okay. I feel like an idiot. What did he fucking die from? Let me see here. Sorry. God, this light is just driving my nose crazy. He was age 76 after being diagnosed with cancer. And Larry said, "Never have I seen an actor enjoy a role the way Bob did enjoy playing Marty Funkhauser. It was an amazing, unforgettable experience knowing and working with him. There was no one like him, and he told us again and again. We were all in a state of shock." Wow. Damn, okay. Well, that's that makes a lot of sense. They said he went to fucking China on the show. They're like, "Oh yeah, Marty's in China." Something like that. Jeez, that's crazy. Okay, well, that makes sense why he wasn't in the finale then. Well, I mean, all these guys are so fucking old, by like even by like season 1, like they're all, I think it's starting off, everyone's like Larry's in his mid-50s. Jeff Garlin looked like he was probably in his mid-40s at least. Jeff aged really bad too. If you go back to those early seasons, Jeff looks like almost like he's in his, like, I don't know, mid-30s. His like dark gray or dark hair, dark like brown or dark black hair, and kind of youthful looking, always wearing his suit or whatever. Then you get to the last season, he just looks he looks like he's aged. What, Josh? Does he look like he's aged 30 years? Because that's pretty much how long it's been, you fucking idiot. Okay, fair enough. No need to get an attitude about it. I don't know. I'm just saying, man. Like, Larry didn't age bad at all. Like, he aged the best out of all of them. I mean, you could technically say Leon didn't age that bad, but Leon didn't come in until season 6, and I feel like Leon was probably in his like late 20s when he joined the show. Could be wrong on that, but Lot 4795 not a good enough reason. What Marty Funkhauser not being in the last episode of Curb, him being dead's not a good enough reason. If that's what you're referring to, that's hilarious. Because the killer. Oh yeah, OJ's dead. OJ Simpson's dead. Yeah, I told my singer, I was like, she was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "I know, that's some killer news, isn't it?" But no. Going back to the finale here. Yeah, I thought there was a lot of like kind of filler-esque stuff in there, like the whole bit about like Richard Lewis's girl, like he's trying one more final time to find love, and she ends up cutting Larry off, you know, when they're trying to merge or whatever, and like she's in like the last episode for like a good bit of time, and then I guess the one funny bit about that is Richard Lewis is like, "Yeah, she threatened to kill herself after we broke up," and Larry's like, "I highly doubt that," and he's like, "What? You don't think a girl would kill herself over me?" He's like, "No, you're not kill myself over material," or whatever. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, aside from that, and then like the beginning of the final episode with like the plane bit, which is just like your typical going on way too long, like Larry David style of writing, where they're going on and on about turning Larry's phone off, and somebody ratted him out about the phone, and it almost reminds you of like, what was it, season 4, The Producers, where David Schwimmer had apparently told Larry to one of the stewardesses that he needed to put his tray table up or his seat upright or something like that, and he wanted to, anyway. It's kind of rehashing some old plot lines from old episodes of Curb. I thought it went on way too long. Then the whole thing about, like, I didn't really understand the bit about, like, you know, don't tell anybody that I don't like Mexican food. Is Larry trying to paint Cheryl as this, like, Cheryl, as a result of being with Ted Danson, has become this super woke, like, liberal, you know, who can't even say that she doesn't like the food from another ethnicity without feeling the liberal white guilt wash over her. I'm assuming that's what they were getting at with that. And then at the end, Jerry's like, "Oh, I don't like Mexican food," and Larry's like, "Don't worry, I'll keep that to myself." And Jerry's like, "What? Why do you gotta keep it to yourself? What do I care?" So I guess that was kind of funny. So yeah, so then they finally get to like the court scene where Larry's in the courtroom or whatever, and he's just like totally hamming it up in a way that it was just like, what the fuck? Like, why would Larry David think that any of this was like even in the same galaxy of being realistic? Because I mean, I know at this point the show, I mean, at this point they've like beaten a swan to death. They've a trans man has knocked over some thermal cups with their huge penis, and it set Larry's spite store on fire. I mean, yes, the show at this point has established that it's willing to go to ridiculous lengths for the sake of comedy or whatever, but like, you know, you got Larry's attorney in there, like, trying to, like, you know, make the opening case for Larry. And Larry's, like, smacking this fly and stomping on it and, you know, in front of the jurors and all that. And it's just like, all right, well, we've lost all, because, I mean, even the Seinfeld finale, like, their courtroom scenes, like, it might have had a little bit of, like, cartoony stuff as far as like what the defendants did or said or whatever, but it was pretty much like somewhat based in reality. The funniness came from it being almost like a clip show, in the sense that they called in all these witnesses and they recounted like all the crazy weird shit that happened over the years, and the four the gang of four were having to sit there and listen to all these things that they had done over the years, and they had to deal with that. And the lawyer, you know, Jackie, was like just like puzzled by, like, you know, what is wrong with you people, basically. But then, you know, you cut to the Curb Your Enthusiasm courtroom scene, and Larry's just like hamming a fuck up in a way that like no courtroom would allow any of that to happen. And it was like Larry's reaction when Susie dresses up as Larry's wife to gain sympathy, and he's just like, "Oh, this is my wife. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here." You know, it's like, and then, you know, she gets all like pissed off, you know, when she finds out that the recipe for the salad dressing was stolen, and she storms out of her wheelchair, and Larry's like, she's walking. And it's like, oh my God, this is like so weird and like not that funny, and he's almost like mocking his own show at this point with how like stupid he's acting. And this was like throughout this whole episode, because like even when Jeff gives her the recipe, he's like, "Oh, the recipe, you got the recipe." And it's like, man, why are you making a mockery of your show, dude? Like, why are you acting like that? Like, he would have never acted in that way in like the first few seasons or whatever. Like, it was all based in reality, and they just got further and further away from that. But there were definitely some great moments of the last episode. The jury selection was really funny, or the jury like exclusion, I should say, when Larry got to like pick what jurors he wanted to exclude. He sees a guy wearing a bolo tie, and he's like, "Nah, jury number 3, no liberal would be caught dead wearing a bolo tie or whatever, or cowboy tie or whatever." And then he sees, he's like, "Oh, the chick with big hair, no, she looks too close to Kellyanne Conway. No, get her out of here." Then they showed some old guy wearing like suspenders and some like nice button-down shirt. He's like, no, that guy definitely watches Fox News. He's got to go. And then they showed a guy with like a comb over. He's like, no, that's a self-loathing bald man. He hates the fact that he's bald, and he's going to hate me too. Get him out of there. Like, that was pretty funny. And then 15 minutes left of the episode, they introduced Jerry Seinfeld, that was cool to see. And I felt like it was proper that Seinfeld would have, you know, Jerry would appear on probably the last thing that Larry's ever going to do on TV. You know, I mean, he's 76. He might make a cameo here and there, but I mean, the guy's getting up in age, and I don't really see Larry doing anything in front of the camera from here on out. So I thought it was good that his partner that he built this legacy with, Jerry, you know, would be on the last episode, and so that was nice seeing that. And then obviously, spoiler alert, if you've not seen the last episode at this point, I would have thought you have already turned it off by now. So I'm assuming you either don't care or you haven't, or you've already seen it. But Jerry's actually the one that gets Larry out of jail. There was this bit that I wanted to show you on this stream. I wanted to show you the direct video, but I guess HBO Max has gotten they've gotten clever to the video capture devices these days, because I tried to. So towards pretty much, it's not the final scene, but it's one of the final scenes of the last episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. They show Larry David sitting in jail because he gets convicted, guilty. Oh, before I touch on that, I'd like to touch on this other thing that I noticed. So much like the Seinfeld courtroom finale episode, they start bringing in character witnesses on the Curb one, just like they did on Seinfeld. And I thought to myself, all right, he's literally like giving Seinfeld fans the middle finger at this point, because now it's blatantly obvious that Curb Your Enthusiasm, in this very Inception-esque way, Curb Your Enthusiasm, which was a show about Larry's life, who was a guy who wrote on Seinfeld and is now rich. It's a show about his life, and then the end of that show is him like in a courtroom on trial with a bunch of people coming in talking about the horrible things Larry David has done, just like what happened to him on his show. It's like he gets so fucking Inception-esque with this shit. That's like season 4 on Seinfeld, where like Jerry gets a show about his life being a stand-up, and Jerry and George have to write it, and you know, they almost get the show on NBC. It just like he's so good at like writing these crazy Inception like kind of like concepts about playing yourself, but you're not real anyway. So I thought, you know, out of all the people in all the situations Larry David has been in on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and all the people he's pissed off, I'm like, all right, this is great. We're gonna see like all these actors from over the years, and some of them you haven't seen in a long time, and or whatever, and it's gonna be interesting. Dude, they literally like pull from like the last like 3 seasons, and then they do a few choice selections from like earlier seasons. I thought it was so weak. Like they literally just they do the Black Swan incident from like season 9. They do like Mocha Joe from season 7. It's like, who gives a fuck about? Oh no, it was the Spite Store, so that was season 11, I want to say. So they bring Mocha Joe in. Like, who gives a fuck about Mocha Joe? That character was so annoying. They bring in his nasty ex-girlfriend, the Senate woman, or this whatever, not Senate, not Congress, whatever, the lady that he was dating, who was on the board to get the law repealed. I mean, that she was literally in this season. Like they didn't break up until episode 5. So it's like, yes, they did. I did think it was interesting that they brought back the girl who had the Susie doll, where Larry cut the doll's hair all the way back from like season 3 or whatever, and now she's like 30 years old. At the time, she was like a little girl, you know, who had the Susie doll. Now she's like a full-grown ass adult. So it was stuff like that I wanted to see more of, you know. I mean, God, the amount of people that he's pissed off or has wronged in that show, it's like they could have just mined so much more from that. I mean, they could have done the lady from The Producers, who he ended up not having sex with her because he found out she was a Republican, or Ben Stiller, or David Schwimmer's character, or, I mean, the doctor, but either doctor that he's had. I mean, they could have had so many people that they could have called to the stand that where they could have brought back those situations that where he did the things. And then they did some clips, and it was the last, you know, 10 minutes of it was kind of clip showy or whatever. So anyway, after all that, he ends up getting convicted, guilty. So he ends up getting sentenced to jail. He's sitting in jail, and it's framed the same way, for the most part, that they had framed the final season of Seinfeld, where all 4 of them are sitting in the jail cell, the holding cell. Well, Larry's sitting in his holding cell, and he looks down at his corduroy pants, and he's got the pants tent. And he's flicking around that bunched up bit of fabric around the crotch area. And one of the inmates is like, man, I hate it when that happens. And he's like, I know. It happened, it's like, I got all this material here. He's like, women don't have to worry about this. He's like, yeah, that's why I don't wear corduroy pants. He's like, yeah, well, unfortunately, that's what I'm wearing right now. And that literally cuts back to the first scene of the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is the exact way they ended Seinfeld. In the last scene of Seinfeld, Jerry is pointing to George, or I believe it was Jerry points to George, and he goes, that button's in the worst possible spot. It's right in the middle there. It's in no man's land. And as the camera pans out, and George is like, haven't we had this conversation before? And Jerry's like, I don't know. And then it kind of fades to black or whatever. In the very first episode of Seinfeld, the very first season, it starts out and they're in this hideous cafe that they would later change to Monk's. And that's the first dialogue. He's like, that button's in the worst possible spot. It's in no man's land. I would have made a compilation of both of those clips from both of those shows and shown it to you right now. But, yeah, clamping down on that copyright shit, man. If I had been more prepared, I could have done that. And if I had made a non-streaming video, I would have done that. But I figured this is more of a hangout, chat, casual kind of topic that didn't necessarily warrant a highly edited, polished video. So I thought it was really clever that Curb ended the same way it started, just like Seinfeld ended the same way it started. But it's a fake ending because right at that moment, Larry gets bailed out by Jerry because Jerry had seen the jury had been sequestered since it was a high-profile case, and nobody in the jury was supposed to be outside of their hotel room or whatever. And Jerry had bumped into one of the jurors at a Mexican restaurant. They went back and looked at the footage, saw that he was there. They declared a mistrial, and all charges were dropped. And as Larry and Jerry are walking out of the jail, Larry just goes like this. And he looks at Jerry and he goes, this is how we should have ended the finale. And Jerry's like, man. And then they kind of walk out. Now, that would have been a fine place to end the show, but the scene they actually end the show on forever is they're all in a plane, the key cast members, Larry David, Leon Black, Susie Green, Jeff Green, Cheryl David, Ted Danson, Richard Lewis. They're all lined up in the plane. And Susie opens the window and it lets all this light in, and they all start complaining and arguing. It's like, Jesus, close the window. I'm trying to watch a movie. She's like, I need the light to read. Get over it. Go fuck yourself. And actually, when it's panning over to Leon and Larry, it goes by Richard, and he's got his eyes closed like he's sleeping. Dude, he looks dead. He looks like a fucking corpse. It's really creepy. Now knowing that he died, before the show even finished premiering all the episodes. But then they do a wide shot of all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the people, and they're all just arguing amongst themselves or whatever. And then it just cuts to credits, and it's like, really? They're gonna end the shot with them on a plane arguing amongst themselves, and that's how they're gonna finish the whole fucking season or series? I thought that was a pretty weak ending. I felt like if they had ended at the jail scene where Jerry bails him out and he goes, man, this is how we should have ended the finale, and then Jerry and Larry walk out, and then they cut to dun, 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 dun. I felt like that could have been a better, just end it there. We didn't need that plane scene. It literally added nothing. Maybe maybe they just wanted a scene where it showed the main, people who have been there since day one. Well, not Leon, but they wanted to show the main cast, in one big shot before they cut everything off. doing what they do best, arguing amongst themselves. So yeah, that pretty much sums up the final episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. It was okay. I mean, the show had already like lost its true like rocket fuel many seasons ago. I thought it gained a good bit of it back with season 11, but I mean, season 12 was kind of all over the place. It had some pretty funny moments, but I mean, Jesus, when I watched the first like four to five seasons, I'm just laughing out loud constantly. And then everything after that, you'll get a big laugh here and there, but a lot of it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess that's funny. So now I want to talk about kind of like each member of the cast, I guess, and how they might have changed or whatever, the primary cast or whatever. Oh, my nose and this fucking light sensitivity. I'm trying not to rub it. Does somebody want to come over in here and rub my nose for me? That would be sexy. Literally, as soon as I said that, 3 people left the chat. God damn. Sorry. Didn't mean to get scandalous. So I feel like Larry David, like I said, he his attitude and demeanor changed. He got a lot more confident and cocky as the show went on. In the few early seasons, when the show was like at its high point, Larry was he had some like trepidation about interacting with people in general, or he would just meet them with straight up hostility. But then as the show went on, he got so like laissez-faire about social norms or getting along with people that he just would, do whatever he wanted, basically, as if there were no repercussions, and it just broke any sense of like, oh, this is because I mean, some of those early episodes, and they're filmed so like, I would say they would film so poorly for a show that was on like a national paid cable network that you almost thought that it was like a documentary. They filmed it like a documentary. It was like a one camera show, which is what he wanted Seinfeld to be, but the network did not go for that. They wanted the traditional 3-camera shoot with a set and all that. Curb Your Enthusiasm never used sets. It was usually a 1-camera shot whenever they could pull it off. In those first few seasons, like the quality was so bad on like the camera that it really did look like this was somebody holding a camcorder and you were flying the wall in these people's lives. And Cheryl seemed like such a convincing wife. And over time, the quality of the cameras got really sleek, and it lost a lot of that like indie film quality to it. It got very much more like this is a high production show. And Larry's personality really changed, and he got very confident, very, bucking any kind of rules and just doing whatever he wanted to do. To funny results sometimes, other times to, like, what am I watching? This is a little too quirky for me results. Leon Black, I pause to say that he's kind of a series regular, even though he's been there since like season 5. So I mean, he's been there for a lion's share, fair enough. But I don't know. I just always saw him as kind of like a side character. He's just kind of like the comedic foil to Larry David, the comedic annoyance to Larry David, kind of like how Kramer was to Jerry. He wasn't like a main guy, but when he did come in, he had some good bits or whatever. But again, me personally, I just found him kind of annoying. Cause all he talked about was like fucking bitches, and just, I guess all the reasons I don't like fucking rap music, it's just like fucking bitches, shallow shit, materialistic shit. He had his funny moments every now and then, but I think they overly, like, they made him talk like, I don't know, like overly with the ebonics, like, Larry, you gotta get up in that ass. You gotta get up in that ass and spray paint your name. Larry was here in that ass. You gotta leave some paper, some trash, paper, candy wrappers in that ass. You gotta, like all that kind of shit. I was like, It didn't do a whole lot for me. You know, other people might look at that and be like, "Ha, that's hilarious," but I look at it and I'm like, this is, I don't know, like Larry. He almost struck me too much as a stereotype, I guess you could say. Like he didn't really feel like he was like a whole person. He felt like just kind of like, you know, black ratchet guy stereotype. You know, it's kind of what I felt like they did with how Leon was for the most part. And that's pretty much kind of the whole dimension he took the entire show. I don't think there was ever any point where, like, I don't know, he showed like any kind of 3D characteristics to him. It was always just kind of this 2D character. Speaking of 2D characters, you got Susie Green, who's pretty much remained the same throughout the entire series. They made her a little bit calmer as the years went on, although she might have just not been able to summon up that much rage as she did in the first few seasons. Man, she would swear so bad that even though I was a teenager at that point, sometimes my parents would be like, "Good Lord, son, I wish she'd stop all that cursing." That would be my dad, of course. But yeah, she's always just the foil for Jeff, Larry's best friend and manager. And yeah, like she's pretty much been the same throughout the whole show. Larry comes over, he's there for maybe 10 minutes at the Green's house, does something to piss Susie off, and then Susie goes, "You know what, Larry, get the fuck out of my house." And Larry goes, "Gladly, with pleasure, I'm leaving." You know, like, so she's kind of always just been like a kind of two-dimensional herself. Jeff, he's got that very likable, like, side buddy, like he's a good, like, best friend kind of character for Larry. Has pretty much remained that way, although he didn't see a whole lot of action in season 12, especially in the final episode. He had barely any lines at all outside of having to get his wife a gift or whatever, and he got that whole salad dressing recipe or whatever from Auntie Ray. But his character didn't really change a whole lot, although his acting got pretty bad there at certain points. Like, I think it was on season 10 or 11, Marty Funkhauser, it must have been season 10 because Marty was still alive. He had the whole AIDS walk or whatever it was, and Marty ended up getting Larry to donate money. And then Marty didn't even walk. He just sat there drinking coffee at this side cafe and watched the walkers walk by. And Larry's like, "What the fuck? What are you doing? Why aren't you walking?" And he's like, "What? I'm this is me participating. I don't have to walk." He's like, "Yeah, you have to walk. That's why I gave you the money, because I thought you were going to walk." And Larry goes up to Jeff and tells him that, because Jeff is actually walking. And it takes Jeff like 3 or 4 seconds to react, and Jeff goes, "What? What the fuck? That's crazy." And again, I would insert the clip in right now, but I'm not Red Cow, okay? I'm not as slick as those guys are. I don't have any slobs, and this is live. But yeah, his acting had kind of gotten a little shoddy there for a little bit, with his whole, like, all his sayings, like, "That's a whole bowl of wrong," and all that kind of stuff. They felt kind of shoehorned in there after a while. Cheryl David just became more and more of a bitch, to the point to where, like, she was completely unlikable by the last few seasons. She just was like, I mean, aside from that one episode where they kind of got back together and they started sleeping together while she was dating Ted, that was kind of the only reprieve you got from Cheryl not being an annoying bitch. But other than that, she was pretty annoying. Ted Danson started out early on in the show, just being like a realistic guy who was pretty much playing himself for all intents and purposes, and he was with Mary. And did they ever discuss in the show when Ted and Mary got divorced? Because it seemed like one minute, I mean, even in the very first season, Larry starts kind of like lusting after Ted's wife to a certain degree, and they go out shopping and all that, and then later on in the show they're still together, and then one day Ted Danson's dating Cheryl, and I don't think they ever really explain what happened to his wife Mary Steenburgen or whatever. But he got a lot douchier and a lot more like Hollywood as his character, went on or whatever. And then finally you got Richard Lewis, who probably changed the most because he was very funny and kind of playing his stand-up character, very this nebbishy kind of guy who you could tell was actually best friends with Larry in real life. And then as those later seasons, man, you could just see him like withering away on camera, and he got less and less, lively, and it seemed like he was just kind of phoning in his lines. And I remember hearing him. I think he was on like Mark Maron's podcast or something like that at some time many years ago when he was starting to like kind of go downhill. And man, whenever he talked, he sounded like he was so doped up on something. Like he was barely getting his lines out. He sounded half asleep, and I'm thinking like, how is this guy acting on this like big show on HBO and he's like this zonked out any other time when he's not on camera? Which is a shame. I don't know exactly all the history behind that, but so yeah, that's I guess that sums up kind of my thoughts on the last episode and then kind of just the show in general. Now I'll go through and read some of your chats here. Got to figure out where I left off last. Colt says, I've been playing guitar for 25 years. I play mostly heavy metal. I find over the years I use my pinky finger more and more. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess if you're playing metal and you're doing those hammer-ons and pull-offs or doing the wheedly, 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 doing that Metallica Megadeth shit, yeah, you're going to be using your pinky. Or if you're doing like the metalcore, yeah, I'll make that noise again if you want me to. This is such a Seinfeld ending, potentially end up in jail and going to court. Yeah, it was pretty much not a beat for beat, but it was a pretty much, the plot was so very similar, and, obviously that was on purpose. Twice, the whole courtroom scene was ludicrous. Yeah, it was. It was very silly and cartoony. It had its moments, but overall it was pretty out there. Very non-curb of them as far as referring to their earlier times. Sorry about those a-holes at karaoke. That song sucks anyway. Also, what band you been into lately? What band have I been into lately? Shit. I haven't really been listening to music for pleasure lately. I hate to say that, but I've been working on my band's new song that we're trying to put out. I barely have free time to listen to music just for pleasure. I'm not really listening to anyone right now. Sadly, I'm sad to say. I'll just like pull up my Spotify and like go to one of my playlists that gives me good vibes, and I'll just listen to that. It's mostly like 80s and 90s like adult contemporary. I'm becoming old at a rapid pace. Entourage, yeah, that was a show that I never looked into. It never appealed to me. It seemed like a bunch of douchebags, and I was dealing with enough of those in my high school at the time, so I didn't really want to see a show about douchebags, even though now I know it's about like agents in Hollywood and how they're slime balls. I don't know. Speaking of cancer, rest in peace OJ. It's so sad that he never found the real killer. Yeah, man, he was working hard on them golf courses trying to find that killer. Maybe on the ninth green, he would have found him. Goji Berry, even with all the Republican bashing, it was still an absolutely fantastic ending. You think so? Fantastic? I don't think it was a fantastic ending. I think it was okay. I think Larry was kind of overdoing the show, so he knew he needed to like kind of sunset it in a decent way. If he didn't do that as an ending, I mean, it's not like him and Cheryl were going to get back together or anything like that. That's not how Larry writes. So him kind of doing this Inception Seinfeld ending for his own show, it kind of made the most sense in the world for him, I would say. I love how Jenner was happy that OJ died, only for people to say, "Didn't you kill somebody?" Yeah, didn't she like hit someone with a car, like run over someone or something like that? OJ should have been in Curb, and Larry should have been helping him write the sequel to If I Did It, called If I Did It TOO, If I Did It Too, with Larry talking about being accused to everything in the show. Wow, that's not that would have been super edgy, and that I think OJ is seen by many people as generally an abhorrent individual. I don't think even Larry would have touched that one, but in an alternative universe, I think that could have made for like a good edgy Curb episode. Sex in the City, Jesus Christ. My mom was a huge fan of that show. That kind of tells you everything you need to know. The Mexican food was a segue. I don't see how it was a segue, because Jerry could have seen the guy in the Mexican restaurant, and Larry just wouldn't have had to have said that line of, "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone that you don't like Mexican food." Like, he could have just been like, "Oh, I was in a restaurant and I saw the guy." It doesn't have, I don't know. I think he just wanted to, I think they're just trying to make Cheryl look like, since she's been with Ted, she's turned into this like super like liberal woke Hollywood person, by the like, "Oh, I'm not even allowed to say I don't like food from another culture." Again, one of my favorite usernames of all time, DSP's wife's boyfriend. Can we talk about anything other than Curb? Well, that's kind of the name of this whole stream, this particular stream. But I mean, I'm sure I'll get to other topics here. 30 Rock it is. Oh God, go back to Curb. Yep, we're going to be talking about Curb all night long. Babu! Tina Fey was slashed in the face by a crazy guy when she was a little girl. You can still see the scar. Jesus Christ, Volunteera. That was dark. Oh. See, I was on the fence about reading her book Bossy Pants, because she put out that bio, and I love like biographies. But I was like, do I give a shit enough about Tina Fey to want to know about her whole life? And I don't think I do. But we shall see. I don't know. Zap Brannigan says Tina Fey is peak overrated in every way. I think to really appreciate Tina Fey, which I gotta say I don't necessarily appreciate her. I think you really have to be a writer in the Hollywood like machine to like truly appreciate her and what she's done. I'm not a behind the scenes guy. I'm not in that industry, obviously, so I don't know. I mean, she's probably like gotten a lot of projects off the ground. She's probably helped write on a lot of things behind the scenes. She's probably done a lot of behind the scenes shit that like we don't realize. But like everyone in Hollywood realizes it, because they all, go to the same mixers together, and they order the same cabinets off of what was that one website where they were storing children in the cabinets. And anyway, what was it? It wasn't Wayfair. I don't remember. It was a Jeffrey Epstein joke, guys, that did not land because my mind can't think anymore. Johnny, killer shirt, dude. Where did you get it? I want to say I got this online somewhere, dude. You can type in certain person on shirt, go, and there'll be some website that will have that shirt for sale. M Twice, on a pretty early episode, they're at a party and Cheryl goes to the bathroom and asks Larry to watch the door. He fails to do so and someone walks in. Cheryl claims she was doing the most embarrassing thing ever. What do you think she was doing? Yeah, she says something about like, Larry, imagine the most embarrassing moment someone could have in the bathroom when they think they're alone. I just went to like she was inserting a new tampon or something. I'm assuming that's got to be it. Or she was just violently masturbating and squirting all over the bathroom. Those are really the only two possibilities. Got a $10 super chat from Yauk. I'd love to hear your opinions on Tally Hall, especially Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum. Damn, bro, you're going to regret donating that $10 because I have no idea about what any of that stuff is. Quite frankly, unfortunately. Maybe you can shed some light on it and I can just comment on your comment. You mentioned rap, Chicago. You mentioned rap. I prefer 80s, 90s rap, maybe some 2000s rap. 2010s onwards, I have to be in the mood to listen to it. Most of it sounds the same to me. Dude, I was going to say, you like 80s rap? But no, there's some good 80s rap. Run DMC's Raising Hell, some good Beastie Boys albums in there. And those are kind of the only ones that I go to. I tried listening to Public Enemy. I tried listening to Big Daddy Kane and Eric B. and Rakim. You know, all the dudes that Eminem's constantly gassing up as his influences, and I'm not really feeling it. Even NWA, outside of like a couple of their songs, most of their songs really weren't that great. But I'd say Run DMC and Beastie Boys were the two kings of 80s hip-hop, in my opinion, at least. And Beastie Boys is kind of a Run DMC clone, so Run DMC is GOAT in the 80s, if you ask me. Then the 90s, it just fucking exploded. It's anyone's guess who's the greatest of all time when it comes to 90s rap. Of course, everyone's going to say Tupac and Biggie, but I don't know. Definitely... I don't know, because you had like Outkast came out in the 90s, and they had put out some good albums. I don't know, it's a hard one. Then Snoop had Doggy Style. I mean, hell, technically Eminem came out with Slim Shady EP in like 97. But yeah, it probably goes to like Biggie or Tupac as far as the cultural significance. Yeah, rest in peace, Richard Lewis. That was a big loss. Yeah, well, I kind of saw it coming though, because he did not look like he was in good condition towards the last few seasons of that show. Are you too young to know about Homestar Runner? I know about it, but I was too young to use it. My brother was on there, who's 4 years older than me. It was some kind of social media site, wasn't it? I know it had some little guy with like a mask or something. I don't know. Radiohead's been on my repeat again on Spotify, mostly Kid A Amnesiac. Yeah, I listened to Kid Amnesiac the other day, the double album, which was what it was meant to be because it was like from the same recording session. Those two albums, they go together, yet I can totally see why they were made separate albums. I mean, you can tell they're from the same recording session, but the songs were so different on each one. Kid A was definitely more ambient, and then Amnesiac was more kind of like staccato, percussive stuff going on in there. I don't know. I think I like Amnesiac a little. The B side of Amnesiac like is some of the best of that record. Like Spinning Plates, Hunting Bears, Dollars and Cents. Like, those are all just, well, the A-side's good too. The only thing I don't like on Amnesiac is Morning Bell. I don't like the Amnesiac version of Morning Bell. I much prefer Kid A's version of Morning Bell. Larry David and JB Smoove, one of the best comedy duos ever. I'm sure some people feel that way. Old Jewish man with a younger black guy from the streets. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of comedic gold to be had there, and Larry towards the end just starts just outright as antagonistic towards Leon, and Leon just kind of blows it off. That's kind of funny. Leon's like, "Yo, Larry, I'm finally gonna watch Seinfeld for the first time." He's like, "I'll tell you what I think." And Larry's like, I'm not interested in your opinions about the show. And he's like, Yo, I'm gonna tell you what I think. What, why don't you want to hear about it? He's like, because I don't consider you a person. I was just like, damn, fucking Larry's had enough of Leon, I guess, towards the end there. AMSP just makes me depressed. I suck at abbreviations. I don't know what that means. Public Enemy, I just ignore the political messaging and I just see it as lyrics, same way I feel with Rage Against the Machine. I don't know. I'm not smart enough politically to like know what the fuck Rage is talking about in any one of their fucking songs, except for maybe like Testify, which was clearly about the 2000 election between Al Gore and George W. Bush. But yeah, most of their songs are just like, you have to be like a political science major to know even what they're talking about. Oh, another $5 super chat from Yoke. No regrets. If you ever want weird good, check them out. Tally Hall is very underrated. Is this like music or like a TV show or what? I don't know what it is. Volunteer, definitely not Diddy, talking about best rappers of the 90s. I mean, even like outside of all the sexual allegations or whatever, even outside of that, if none of that shit had ever happened, Diddy would not be in the discussion for greatest rapper of the 90s. Like, I can barely even think about anything he put out. I mean, I think you have to be like a pretty big fan to name more than like 2 or 3 Diddy songs where it was like, I mean, did he? I don't know if he ever had a single song where it was just him. Because like, I'll Be Missing You had Faith Evans on there. And then All About the Benjamins had like several rappers. Although the remix with the guitar, like the heavy version of All About the Benjamins, like that song slaps. Hate Me Now, that was Nas and P. Diddy. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. We won't be stopped now, because it's Bad Boys for Life. That song had like several different artists on there. Dave Navarro was in the video playing guitar, but at that point you could get Dave Navarro in it. Moby had Dave Navarro in his video for We Are All Made of Stars. What about Will Smith before he's an actor? It's actually a decent point. Will Smith was pretty good. He has that song, I Wanna Rock, I think, or he interpolates the I Wanna Rock Right Now. Like, Jazzy Jeff is really the one killing it on the turntables. I've said this in previous streams, but DJ Jazzy Jeff is a legit turntablist. Like, that guy could fuck up some turntables. Don't believe me? Go watch a YouTube video. But I could see how like a lot of like black people in the rap industry have said things along the lines of Will Smith wasn't really making music for us. He was making music for white people. Cause like it might have been even Damon Wayans talking about one of his stand-up specials talking about, you know, he's got this song Parents Just Don't Understand, and we out here going like, parents? You got more than one? Like, I mean, if you look at it through that filter, then it's like, yeah, why am I fucking with this guy, this corny ass rapper guy who making songs that don't even sound like they're made for our community? They sound like they're made for white folks, and I don't know. There's some stereotypes in there that I'll let you guys parse through. I didn't say any of those words. I just quoted other people who said those words. Like Spinning Plates, my favorite Amnesiac song. Yeah, that's probably one of my favorite ones off of there too. Off of Kid A, I don't know. I've just been listening to Tree Fingers a lot lately. Cause like, especially if you have a nice hangover going on, just hearing that block of sine waves wash over you, it's very peaceful. Of course, Everything in Its Right Place and Idiotech are great songs. Oh, Moonshaped Pool. Yeah, the abbreviations throw me off. Moonshaped Pool is pretty good. I'll still listen to that one. Kid 17. Oh, I hate Kid 17. My friend burned me a CD of Kid 17 one time, and I'm just like the whole. Okay, I could understand if you're gonna do like everything in its right place, but like every song is. It's the song starts and then 17 minutes into the song they overlay the beginning of the song on top of the song that's already playing, and it's supposed to create this like trippy experience, man. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like that was passed around during like my college years, and college kids eat that kind of shit up. Like you can't just like the normal thing, like, hey, have you heard this fucked up weird version of it? Like that's the version we're all listening to. And it's like, yeah, I'll just take the normal version. I think they did the normal version just fine as it is. The smile. I know, Salvador Jolly. I love that username. I haven't listened to Smile yet. It like what did Tom York and Flea, did they ever abandon their project? What was it, like Flowers for or Bombs for Peace or something like that? Like Flea from the Chili Peppers and Tom York and some other people had a project. And then apparently they're doing a new thing with it's like Johnny Greenwood and Tom York and then some other people. And I guess they're doing like just more direct music. It's not as like heady as Radiohead stuff with all its layers and ambient textures and shit. I haven't really listened to much of it because honestly, like, for me to sit down and like really delve into and enjoy, like try to absorb new music nowadays is like it's kind of like a big ask for me, because like I like most of my day is like blocked out with like what I have to do for whether it's my YouTube channel or for the band or for my job or for just doing like chores around the house. And if I'm doing shit around the house, I typically these days prefer listening to like podcasts. Like I listen to Red Cow's podcast when I'm just doing shit around the house. It's rare that I just like put on music. And if I do put on music, I'm going to put on shit that I've already heard. I usually won't take a chance on a new album that I probably won't like. So, but I mean, the Smile could be really good for all I know. I mean, the ingredients are there. Another $5 from Yoke. Thanks, man. Last super chat. Love your groove. Stay this way. Well, thank you. Whatever my groove may be, I plan on staying this very way. Tom York's band was called Albums for Peace. Now, Tom and Johnny doing their own band. Yeah, I would imagine like getting like all 5 members together, because they all have families now and shit, and they're one of those bands that like they got in when the music industry was like ripe and fresh. Well, not fresh, but they CD sales were strong and there was money to be made in the industry, and there was so much money to be made, in fact, that record labels were very much ready and able to take chances on weirder bands like a Radiohead type band or Rage Against the Machine or Tool or Smashing Pumpkins or all the bands that I really like. They were willing and able to take chances on those bands because there was room out there for everyone. There was money to be made. It wasn't one of these things. It was like you could say the same thing about the music or the movie industry in the 90s. Like, remember seeing all like those weird movies in theaters, like the Truman Show or like American History X, or these very odd movies that weren't franchises. They weren't superhero movies. They weren't like legacy movies that have been remade. They were just these unique standalone movies that really the only reason they made it to the box office was they were able to secure 1 or 2 or 3 big stars, and the studio's like, fuck it, let's take a chance on it. Well, the music industry was the same way. They would get vibes about bands, or they'd have an A&R guy who was the cheerleader for the band in the record company, and they would kind of put their neck out for certain bands, and certain bands would hit and make it, and then many wouldn't, but they at least got a chance. And that's something that we don't even have now, is a chance. Like, we don't, like indie bands don't even have a chance to get their foot in the door now. No way. It's impossible. There'll never be another MGMT or TV on the radio, or like, I mean, even a Radiohead or any of those bands. There'll never be another band like that that's new, that's on a major label, who gets all the same marketing push that like a Taylor Swift would, or Drake would, or any artist that's already established. Now what they do is they make you go out and build your own following, like what Oliver Tree had to do, to where it's like, if you can get 2 million Twitter followers, we'll drop your record. And then he gets to 2 million. All right, well, if you can get to 3 million Twitter followers, we'll drop your record. We had a similar thing in one of my older bands. It was a rap rock band. It was awful. We were called Victor, Viktr. In fact, I'll drop a link in the chat so you can check out the shitty rap rock. Well, if you like rap rock, you might like them, because like the production was good, but it is not my cup of tea whatsoever. But we had played a battle of the bands in Jacksonville, and we won, and we worked our way all the way up to winning the main the main prize was to play the main stage at Welcome to Rockville, a big rock music fest, when it was still held in Jacksonville. And yeah, so I'm dropping the link. It's called Josh's Old Memories. These are all bands that I was affiliated with, or I was actually in. Our Finest Hour is the only band in that list of bands that I actually had nothing to do with it, but it was my friend's band, and I really liked their music. But you'll have to scroll down a good ways before you hit Victor. They're like the last one. But yeah, it's rap rock or whatever. But anyway, we got to play main stage at Welcome to Rockville. A lot of people in the chat should know what Welcome to Rockville is. It's like Rocklahoma or Rock on the Ridge or it's not like Blue Ridge Rock Festival, because it's actually run coherently and not by insane people who don't know what they're doing. If you know anything about the Blue Ridge Rock Festival, you know how much of a debacle it's turned into. But anyway, as a result of us playing on main stage at Welcome to Rockville, our singer, which was kind of our point guy, it was the guy that everyone went to, who wanted to have any business dealings with us. We were just the band. He was kind of like the rapper and manager. They flew him out to Texas to have a meeting with him. I think it was Interscope, one of those major labels. But it wasn't like the Big Daddy Interscope. It was one of their like subsidiary labels, like Interscope back in the day had, like, Fred Durst had his own sub label on Interscope. It was like Flip Records or something. Slim Shady had Shady Aftermath or something. It was a sub label under some other whatever. It was one of those. And they basically told our singer or rapper, they told him the same thing. They're like, yeah, if you guys can get your social media following up to 40,000 followers on Facebook, then we can talk, or blah, blah, blah. So, like, I believe Oliver Tree when he said that the label wouldn't release his record until he was able to get so many million followers on Twitter. Because, like, one of our old bands, we were told the same thing. It wasn't 1 million. It was much less than that. But they basically want to see that if they're going to be investing their money in you, that you have already put in so much legwork and you have so much ability to market your own band, that we're not going to, this won't be a completely foolish investment for us. On one hand, that makes sense, but on the other hand, it kind of sucks because, like, social media didn't fucking exist back in the 90s. So they couldn't tell a band like Primus, like, we think you have a really unique sound and one of our guys really vouches for you. but we really need to see some numbers. Yeah, it's like there were what numbers? There's no numbers. There's no social media. All there were independent CD sales, and most artists were barely able to print their own CDs or have their CDs pressed. And if they were, it was a very expensive process back then. It's still kind of expensive now to have CDs made in a semi-professional way for your own band. We had it done. And I'm sure it's way cheaper now than it was back then because all the machinery has gotten more cheaper and efficient. So, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of depressing in a way that we've really, like, the time of, like, bands like Radiohead being played on an MTV or on a main radio station that everyone's going to get exposed to it is, like, that's just gone. It's just never going to happen again. But because Radiohead was in the door before it closed, they're now a legacy band. So they cannot play or release anything for 10 more years and then decide they want to get together and they're still going to be able to book out stadiums because they had that much popularity in the 90s, and all the millennials and Gen Xers are going to come out with their walking canes and pay the top dollar to see Radiohead. But, you know, Blink-182 was one of those bands. You know, Foo Fighters was one of those bands. Offspring's one of those bands. Although Offspring, I don't think are quite on that tier. But Offspring's gonna be at every fucking festival, big rock festival, and they're gonna be headlining. And I think the emo bands were really the last bands to kind of really feel the force of a bunch of kids going out and buying their albums at CD stores and having their music videos played on MTV and being enjoyed by, you know, all the little kiddies who then go and tell their friends about My Chemical Romance and tell their friends about Panic at the Disco and all that. I think that was kind of one of the, like, last dying kind of breath of that culture. Is anyone still listening to my blathering right now? Okay. Well, let's see here. Let's see what else is going on in the world. All right. Well, I think I might... I'm fine with radio being dead now. I mean, I don't know if they would, like... I have this radio station where I live, and they're starting to play bands that are, like, more underground, you know? And by underground, I mean bands that aren't Foo Fighters or, you know, these huge, like, mainstream giants that have been around for 20 and 30 years. So, I mean, I think that's important, and I definitely think that, like, that terrestrial radio still matters as far as, like, promotion and getting your name out there. But anyway, I think I'm running out of gas on here. I've talked about what I wanted to talk about. I don't want to, you know, drag this thing out because I've kind of run out of shit to say for right now. I mean, I could stay on here and just blather all night long, but it is Friday and I would like to go out and do other things. So anyway, I guess I'll be ending the chat. Thank you for everybody stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed the Curb Your Enthusiasm talk and the music talk as always. And yeah, if you haven't seen my Lil Wayne video that I put out, please go and give that a watch because I don't know. Seems like I kind of figured the Scientology video about We Stand Tall. I kind of figured that I kind of figured that video wouldn't have done as good. But I don't know. I figured the Lil Wayne one would have performed halfway decent. Because that record sucked that he put out. But anyway, till next time.